Greetings, fellow gardeners, and welcome back to the Humus Heritage. Today we're diving into something truly transformative that will revolutionize the way you approach plant care. Imagine walking through your garden where tomatoes hang heavy on the vine, eggplants gleam with perfect fruit, and your mature plants radiate health and vigor. Yet if someone examined your plants closely, they'd see no evidence of heavy-handed pruning. This isn't gardening wizardry, it's the art of invisible pruning, and by the end of this guide, you'll possess knowledge that will elevate your garden's productivity while keeping your techniques beautifully subtle. The illusion of neglect. What is invisible pruning? What if the most effective pruning isn't something you see, but something your plants feel? Invisible pruning represents a fundamental shift in how we think about plant maintenance, rather than wielding shears and making dramatic cuts that leave obvious wounds and create stress. Invisible pruning involves subtle, strategic interventions that work with your plant's natural growth patterns. These techniques are so understated that casual observers might think your plants are simply blessed with exceptional genetics or perfect growing conditions. The revolutionary aspect lies in its philosophy. By making tiny, timely adjustments rather than major structural changes, you minimize plant stress, reduce disease entry points, and allow your plants to channel energy exactly where you want it, into abundant, flavorful fruit. This approach acknowledges that plants respond better to gentle guidance than forceful redirection, resulting in healthier specimens and significantly improved yields. Tomato transformation, the art of subtle shaping. For indeterminate tomato varieties, invisible pruning becomes an almost meditative practice of observation and gentle intervention. The cornerstone technique involves what I call the early morning massage, walking through your tomato patch when plants are turgid with morning moisture and gently running your fingers along the main stems. You're feeling for those nascent suckers, the tiny shoots that emerge where leaf stems meet the main trunk. When these suckers are barely larger than a grain of rice, they pinch away effortlessly between your fingernails, leaving virtually no scar and causing zero stress to the plant. This timing is crucial because once suckers develop woody tissue, removal creates visible wounds that become disease entry points and require the plant to divert energy toward healing rather than fruiting. The lower leaf maintenance strategy deserves particular attention because it's where many gardeners either do too much or too little. Starting when your first flower cluster appears, begin a gradual removal of the oldest, bottommost leaves, but only those that are touching or nearly touching the soil. Remove just 2 or 3 leaves per week, never more, allowing the plant to adjust its photosynthetic capacity gradually. This measured approach maintains airflow at ground level where fungal spores thrive in moisture and darkness, while avoiding the shock of sudden defoliation. By the time your first fruits are sizing up, you'll have created a clean 18-inch clearance beneath the plant without ever making it look stripped or stressed. Perhaps the most counterintuitive aspect of invisible tomato pruning involves selective fruit cluster thinning. When you spot a cluster forming with 8 or 10 tiny green fruits, resist the temptation to let them all develop. Instead, while they're still marble-sized, gently twist off the smallest 2 or 3 fruits from each cluster. This sacrifice dramatically improves the size, flavor intensity, and speed of ripening for the remaining fruits. The plant invests the same amount of energy either way, but concentrated into fewer fruits. Each one becomes a showcase specimen rather than a handful of mediocre ones. Eggplant elevation, maximizing yield with minimal intervention. Eggplants respond beautifully to invisible pruning, though their optimal techniques differ slightly from their tomato cousins. The critical first intervention happens when your eggplant seedling reaches about 12 inches tall and begins branching. At this juvenile stage, you'll notice multiple shoots competing for dominance. Select the 2 to 4 strongest, most well-positioned stems and gently pinch away any others while they're still tender. This early structural decision creates an open, vase-shaped plant that will support heavy fruit without tangled, congested growth that harbors pests and disease. As your eggplants mature and begin flowering, you'll face another opportunity for subtle intervention that pays enormous dividends. Those first few flower buds that appear might tempt you with the promise of early harvest, but here's where patience and strategy intersect. Pinch off the first 3 to 5 flowers completely, even though it feels counterproductive. This early sacrifice allows the plant to establish a more robust root system and stronger branch structure before supporting the considerable weight of mature fruit. The result manifests about 6 weeks later, when your plants suddenly explode with simultaneous flowering and fruit set, producing 2 or even 3 times the yield of unpruned neighbors. Throughout the growing season, maintain eggplant health through what I like to call airflow choreography, gently tucking leaves outward to create space between branches without actually removing them. Run your hands through the plant's interior, feeling for leaves that are pressed against developing fruits or blocking light penetration. These leaves don't need removal, they simply need repositioning. Just tuck them behind adjacent branches or gently bend them downward, creating these invisible pathways for air movement that dramatically reduce fungal diseases while still maintaining the plant's full photosynthetic capacity. Mature plant mastery really comes down to keeping perennials productive. Established fruit trees, berry bushes, and perennial vegetables require a completely different invisible pruning philosophy, one that's focused on energy redirection rather than removal. For mature tomato plants or fruit trees, consider the technique of gentle stem bending. When you identify a branch growing too vigorously in an unproductive direction, rather than cutting it, slowly bend it downward over several days, using soft ties to hold the new position. So, this mechanical stress actually triggers hormonal changes that convert vegetative vigor into fruiting potential, basically turning what would be an energy drain into a productive asset, and all of this happens without creating a single wound. The concept of strategic deadheading, by the way, goes way beyond just flowers. It also includes those non-productive shoots you see on mature plants. On established berry bushes or perennial veggies, you'll notice these shoots that only make leaves and never flower. We call those water sprouts, and honestly, they're energy vampires. If you remove them while they're still finger length and nice and succulent, you direct that energy right back into the fruit-bearing branches. Perhaps the most invisible pruning technique of all involves root zone management. By keeping the soil well aerated, just gently cultivating that top inch of soil and applying compost in a strategic way, you can influence top growth without even touching the plant itself. Healthy, well-oxygenated roots with access to balanced nutrition create naturally compact, well-structured plants that hardly need any corrective pruning at all. This, right here, is the foundation-first approach, and it's invisible pruning at its most sophisticated. The unseen harvest really is a whole new philosophy of plant care. The difference between plants pruned the traditional way and those that get invisible pruning is, well, undeniable by mid-season. While conventionally pruned plants often show stress, like yellowing around cut sites, delayed fruiting, or even disease sneaking in at those wounds, invisibly pruned plants just keep going with continuous vigor. Their fruit production actually starts earlier and lasts a whole lot longer into the season. Over, multiple growing seasons, the cumulative effect really becomes even more dramatic. Invisibly pruned perennials develop resilience and productivity that just compounds year after year. Now it's your turn to join this pruning revolution. Start small with just a few plants, practice these subtle techniques, and, observe the remarkable differences. We want to hear about your invisible pruning successes, so share your experiences in the comments below. If you found this guide valuable, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our in-depth gardening wisdom. Share this video with fellow gardeners who are ready to transform their approach to plant care. Until next time, happy gardening from all of us at the Humus Heritage.